Hey bestie, welcome back to the Own Your Era podcast, or if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Make sure you hit the like, comment, subscribe. I've always wanted to say that because, girl, I feel called to be in my YouTube era. If you're listening to this, I'll make sure to drop that in the show notes, but it has been just a crazy couple of weeks, maybe 6 weeks, we'll give it. So in case you missed episode 1, I am officially unemployed, girl. Ooh. I got up today, I got dressed, I prayed. I'm like, wow, thank you, God, for giving me the energy to put myself together today because I was not doing that. I want to tell you a little story. Maybe this is weird, but last night I got into my boyfriend's truck and I've had this really interesting thing that's been happening to me. Not all the time, but a lot of the times when I get into his truck, I'll be driving, kind of minding my business, and all of a sudden I'll have this idea that just pops up. I'm like, ooh, that is really good. And for a while, girl, I was depending on my 40-year-old brain to remember these things. And yeah, we're slowly discovering that as you age, your memory also ages, and it is not that great. Girl, if you have a supplement that you can recommend, I am all ears. But instead of trying to put this in my think tank, remember it bank, I don't even know where that just came from, but it all just rhymed, and that's weird. I was like, oh, I wonder if I can ask Siri to record me a voice message. And she goes, who do you want to send that to? Girl, nobody. This is my personal Audible notes, okay? And I realized you have to specifically ask Siri to record a voice memo, and then she can be your girl. She will record you. I had one last night on my way to Raising Cane's, which, honey, we're going to have to clean up our diet. I am being called to it so hard. And I think with this newfound journey with God, I got to stop ignoring it. Okay. We're going to have to do some cleaning and cleansing of things that just are not serving us. I don't know why I'm talking so weird. I just feel very excited. I'm on my way to Raising Cane's. I have all these ideas just drop in. What I started to rattle off was own your era and the different eras we can be in and that I've personally been in, and then subtopics. And then today, freshly dressed, ready to go, face beat for me, which is just a little mascara, some gloss, and a little bronzer here, and then here and there. Oh my gosh, girl, I have my next 7 episodes for the podcast ready to go, which is a big thing for me because I've tended to be someone that operates in this I need to be inspired space. And so this first mini series, the God era, only rightfully so, and being in our fun employment is how hard we're having to lean in and ask and talk to God. I'm in the mud, okay? Some of this mud I will invite you to. Maybe you have a rope, you can pull me out. Maybe you're in the mud with me and we're both trying to figure out how we can get ourselves out of this. But I do believe that there is power in sharing journeys. And I put on my close friends the other day and I said, I am becoming that girl, because somebody responded, I'm just loving seeing this journey, and I know that she lives here in Austin, and I'm like, girl, if you ever want to go to church, let's go. Completely unapologetic. But again, I am sharing this as a way to open conversations with people, to have people help me. There have been people that have randomly been sending worship music. Not for nothing, this is also something that's just changing, and I'm not judging it, but something that has changed is what I'm inputting. And I have just found about 3 or 4 worship songs that I am absolutely obsessed with, and I listen to them on repeat. I have been somebody that has always really enjoyed working in silence, and since I've been unemployed for, it's officially a week and a day, that has been giving me so much life. And so it's just where I'm at. And I'm owning this era. That is where we are. And I really do hope that if you are someone and you're curious, that this helps to feed your curiosity. Or if you're someone that might be further ahead of me, to be like, yeah, hey, I can send you over here to my friend Yolanda. She can relate. She's done the psychedelics, girl. She's been the woo-woo girl. She was giving all of it to the universe, and she's done this shift. God has always been calling me girl. Ooh, that's a story for another day. I'm going to record a separate episode where my belief in God was really solidified. But God had been talking to me, girl, for a while. I just didn't know I was supposed to be listening or believing I could listen. What I want to do with you today, though, is to be really open about some things that have kept me or had kept me from being more curious about faith and walking with Jesus. And I understand that the content and how I'm showing up and sharing some of this right now is probably very triggering for people, because I've been triggered by people that it just seems like they do this big turn, and you don't really have the defining moment of where they made this turn, which is again why I'm open to documenting and sharing it. And so then I do believe that sometimes that can come off, not that it matters, but it may come off or turn people off in a way that it's like, that's weird, okay? That's weird. And my hope is that I can show people, well, this is where I was. This was that defining moment. And this is where I'm at now, and just keeping and being really open and sharing the evolution. I am a curious person, and I do believe that curiosity doesn't kill the cat. Who even came up with that? Please tell me. Actually, let me look that up right now. Like, curiosity killed the cat. Satisfaction brought it back, right? Or is that just a weird thing that my mom said? Oh my gosh. I'm about to give you whole life tea, girl. Okay, curiosity killed the cat is a proverb that warns against unnecessary investigation and experimentation. I don't think it's like a proverb from God. What is a proverb? Oh, okay, I just feel like I literally just looped myself down a rabbit hole. It also mean that being curious can sometimes lead to danger or misfortune. It's me. But in this case, my curiosity has led me to God. I personally, and this is one of the reasons why I am excited to be loud about God as I'm discovering and finding out, because I started seeing people that I deem to be successful start talking about it. I'm like, real interesting when I've got somebody that is 24 years old that was on my former team that sold a company for multiple millions of dollars. Well, actually, I don't know how many millions, but I think it was over 7 figures. Okay, cool. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know. But people openly speaking about God that in my mind, I deem to have a lot of success. And then I started seeing someone that I really just always have loved her content. Her name is Victoria Washington. I don't know if she will ever see this. And it's no longer on her page, because I went to her page recently because I was like, I want to look for this reel that I know really started to kick off this even being more curious, more curious. One of the things that Victoria had said, and I watched her content for a while, and she kind of did. She went from this like real spiritual, like woo-woo vibes, which is initially what attracted me to her, and then to where she was talking about God and Jesus, and me being like, okay, that's interesting. That's a little different. There was one particular post that she made, and it was like, people are always trying to give everything to the universe, but have you tried giving it to God, the creator of the universe? And I remember plainly as day exactly where I was. Ralphie and I were out for a walk, and we were coming into the gate of our old neighborhood, and I was just like, muy interesante. I started to allow my mind to open up. Okay, this is where curiosity has always been a friend for me. Opening up and just like, that's interesting. Or as I became more open, looking at people that I remembered having talked and having like strong conviction and faith, and being like, let me just kind of come and revisit you or be around your energy and just look back from afar. And then I also, and this is so powerful, but I watched other people judge certain people, and there's one person in particular that I think about when I say this, but I watch people judge her and say she's not a good person, and like paint her as this like crazy psycho person. And I just never got that energy from her. Within discernment, I just started watching her. I can be friends with this person. I actually think she's really cool. Watching her openly talk about and discuss God and going to church and all of these things. And again, just that curiosity, right? So I had these really great examples in front of me of maybe this is something to explore. And so what I want to highlight for you are just some things that have personally been holding me back. So crazy. But the first was dress code. And specifically this weekend, I go to church and my friend Christy, she lives in PA, and she watches the sermons, and either we were watching them together on YouTube, but for me, I really have found it is so powerful for me to physically go. And plus, I need to be connecting within community as I'm on this newfound journey. And so one of the people in worship had on a hoodie and holy jeans, like jeans that I know whenever I get ready for church in the morning, there is this thing that goes through me that's like, you can't wear that. And so I said to my friend Christy, I'm like, I'm just blown away you can wear holy jeans to go to church. Because that was a misconception. It wasn't a judgment. It was just observation. I am literally like observing people that have given their lives to God and are walking with Jesus, and I really just want to know, how do you operate? How can I take what I love about you and like your spirit and your energy and start incorporating it into my own life? And what I want you to know, if there's this hold up for you that you have to be in your Sunday best to go to church, understand that God really just wants you to come as you are. And I really love the church that I go to because we have pastors that openly talk about formerly being drug addicts, currently being a little too dependent upon something like Vicodin, and being open about that. And so they have this saying that we're just imperfect people pursuing a perfect God. Hello, girl, what? So come as you are. But I do think that is something that keeps a lot of people held back. The second thing, which kind of flows into that, is this idea that you have to be a perfect person to show up and go to church. I do believe that I'm going to look back at myself in a year, and things I talk about and how I speak are probably going to just slowly evolve and change. But this feeling of I can't go to church or believe in God because I say bad words, or I have these certain activities and recreations that I partake in, okay? Things that people will maybe put on themselves that you're going to be judged by God. And the more that I jump into it and the more that I learn is God loves you so much, girl. So much. He's just looking to have a relationship with you. And so what your job ultimately is, if you're also stuck in that, is that your job is just to get to know him and to start living more like Jesus. It has been so crazy how much my demeanor has changed in the last few weeks, where I just have so much more patience for things. People cutting you off. Got patience today, girl. It's all right. Because it really starts being about you operating and asking yourself, is this how maybe God would react? Is this how God wants to see me react? And however you react to anything, that is okay. Like, he's got you. He loves you so much. But there is this, well, maybe when you start being a little more like this, you're just a better person in general. Truly, I'm getting my period. I even said to my boyfriend the other day, I'm like, I feel like I've been nicer to you even through my PMS. Like, because that is just what I'm feeling. I am feeling like, it's all okay. And asking myself, how would Jesus respond? Right? There was that whole, what would Jesus do? Well, girl, there you go. What would Jesus do? And it may not be what you're doing right now. Number 3, the stereotypes about people that believe in God or go to church. And I've even said this to my friend. I'm like, I feel like I'm becoming a Jesus freak, but I can't even wait. Girl, I am accepting, okay? I am so ready for it. But there is something that has been coming up, and that's this doubt am I being too much? Is it being too crazy? Am I being too nice? Am I being a bit more like people aren't used to seeing me be? I believe that there's like stereotypes that you can't drink and you can't do this and you can't party. There's a way that we can live if we so choose. And then there's a way that you can live where it's very extreme on one end or the other, right? You're binge drinking, you're partying every weekend. And I've had a little bit of that. But now a lot of that stuff has naturally started to fall away from me. I've not really been super called to wanting to drink alcohol right now. I stopped vaping. I have not been doing recreational activities that I once really like had a passion, not a passion, that sounds weird, but just like things that I would do and had accepted that was okay. And I want to be real careful and cautious around this. This is not about me judging anyone. And that's why I'm so open to sharing, like, girl, I've been there, because it's not about me judging. It's just about being like, oh, I can now see that doesn't necessarily fit with where I want to go. And it's not my job to change anyone that enjoys doing those things, has a grand time doing those things. All I can do is pray that maybe this person starts to let Jesus into their life a little bit more. That's it. So I do think that there are just stereotypes that people have around why they may not explore faith. This is number 4 thing that was kind of keeping me away from God and exploring this. If there is a God, why do bad things happen to people? That is so big. This recently came up to me where I was talking to someone, love her, she's so great, and she said something, and I'm that girl. Like, do you pray? And she said, well, I have this background with religion that I don't feel so great about, and I don't understand that if there's a God, why XYZ happened to someone really close to her. And I didn't want to go into that with her, because I feel like that can be really dismissive of people's beliefs and their thoughts, because as someone that is starting to walk with Jesus and be open to this, it's not my job to change anyone. It is not my job. I mentioned this to a friend, and I'm like, I totally get the train of thought, but one of the things that I've started to realize, or how I personally am wrapping my mind around it, is first and foremost is that not everyone walking in the world has accepted Jesus into their lives. So when you think about someone that walks into a school of young children and is not living in a way that is of Jesus, that is someone that is going to have free will and is just going to do whatever they want to do. And so there's always going to be free will in the world. So that's like part of one of the ways. Now, I understand when we think about, let's say, somebody getting cancer, something like that. I also kind of just walked through this, and I had to sit down and have hard conversations with God and say, if this were to happen and this is what you needed to be and this is your plan, please show me how to trust you through everything, because I might not be able to understand this right now, but you have something greater for me. And just having to have that belief, even in stuff that doesn't make sense, that doesn't feel good, you being able to give that thanks and that gratitude and having the conversations with God, that I do believe can help you maybe wrap that around your mind. Because yes, there is a perfect God, but he's not a magician either. That's just a big question. And that's something that I will probably continue to be like searching for and exploring, or just not even searching for, but that will come up as I am in this journey right now. That is one thing that I think that holds many, many people back, is if there is a God, why do bad things happen to people? And I literally used to say this out of my mouth often. Often this would come out of my mouth. There's just going to be things, and the way that God works sometimes, you're not going to understand it. God used my dog to really pull me to him. And again, it's a story for another day, but the way that he will say, girl, it's time to go, that's all on him. Like, that, how you get to where you need to go with it is not for you to necessarily understand. Honestly, the less that we try to understand, the more that you'll believe, if that makes sense. Number 6, something else that was really confusing for me too, is how people interchanged in certain books that I would read as the universe, God, spirit, whatever you call it. And a lot of, if you listen to the kind of this new age spiritualism, or you follow these people, manifestation coaches, things like that, shit. Oh, that was the first cuss word I've said all podcasts. That is good. But stuff, and I'm 30 minutes into actually recording this. And so I always just thought, like, okay, yeah, it's the universe. But I noticed that people that said God versus people that said the universe, there was a difference in the way that they moved around the world, or in the world. And again, just being someone that is an observer of people, and naturally curious around people, I just started paying attention to that. Again, if you have that same thought, it's who created it. And leads me into my next point, which is I love science. I have a degree in biology. So then there was this battle of, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around wanting to believe in this God when Big Bang Theory, or all these things that science has tried to prove. But there are a lot of things that science cannot prove. And it's that mysteriousness of God and the way that he works and moves in the world. This Holy Spirit, this thing that loves all of us so much and just wants the best for us. And a lot of that looks like you having to give over yourself and your ways and becoming the type of self that gets the things that you want. And somebody said, they were like, well, it doesn't have to be this or that. I'm like, oh yeah, I have space for a lot of, and also in many things in my life. So why couldn't I have an also when it came to this? I will tell you, however, as I have put more faith into God, I've started asking myself questions of like, why am I leaning so heavily into this astrology stuff? Not that it's bad, not that I don't love a good meme about being a Libra, but why was I at some point in my life needing to have this prediction of what was going to happen? Because that was no trust. And this is no shade to anyone. You love that stuff. Girl, I have loved that stuff too. I believe that there's space for all of it, but there's just some of it that I've had to sit down and ask myself different questions of, does that really make sense? Is it something that you can align with? And it also is in the and also space for myself personally. And that's the big thing. It is about your personal walk and journey, right? First and foremost with God. Not, yes, we need people and we need community and we should go out here and talk about it and help people find God and all these things. But also being very much of the, well, that's just where that person is. That's okay. If I choose to, I can pray for them. And people were telling me this all the time, that they were praying for me to find God. And I'm like, that's kind of weird, but cool. Now I get it, right? Now I get when you see what you can see, it's just like, oh, girl, of course I want to pray for you. I want to pray for you. Again, this all can feel really weird, but I don't care. The last thing that I want to touch up on, and this came up with the friend that had mentioned, well, if there's a God, why do bad things happen? I have a history with religion and it's not great. And I recently talked to someone that grew up I don't really know, but in one of the extreme forms of Judaism. And she, ping pong from one side of it to the other, which again, there can be space in the middle of all of this. You can have space where you do what you want to do, or you find we don't have to live in this extreme. The question that I ask myself is like, where's the happy medium to all of it, while also not living the way that's going to make me closer and strengthen my connection to God. And I do feel like that naturally some of that stuff is just going to fall away as I no longer have space for it, because it is hindering a deeper connection that I can have with him. But I do feel like if you're someone that has either like grew up and you have that religious trauma, that it looks like you working through that, because I do feel like people that have a lot of that religious trauma, personally, that I've like met or talked to, it's just very cultish in a way, or it's the culture of, well, you can't do this, and if you've done this, like, you got to be shunned from society and you're like this bad person, versus this grace that God has, and the grace that the way that God has grace for you, and the fact of you could have done something so horrible, but God still has that grace. Then it looks like you testing and asking yourself, like, how do I too have more grace? How do I have more grace when I want to pop off at my boyfriend for something usually very silly, okay? But how do I have more grace? And it just looks like you operating in a different way. Those are some of the misconceptions I had that I do want to say kind of kept me from finding and really exploring faith. But at the end of anything that we do in our lives, we have this level of free will, and you have this space to not claim victim. I personally right now have this space to say, wow, I'm 40 years old and I'm just discovering this, and there are so many parts of me that are like beating myself up, like, why didn't I find this sooner? But we find the things that we need to find in divine timing. Trust in the timing, and God will use some of the things that you could least expect in a way for you to, if you choose, be like, okay, I know you're listening. And that's just where I am. And that's been the evolution of my own personal journey. I would love to hear from you today. Slide in my DMs over at _Yolanda Russell. And if you are someone that either has been pulled by faith, or maybe you're separated from it, or you're curious from it, what is holding you back from having that relationship with God? Because having a relationship with God doesn't look like you having to go to church. I'm going to church because, girl, it's lit and I like being in there. And I get to get out of the house as someone that has worked inside and doesn't have a lot of interactions with other people. And it's also really helping me plug in and tap into a community. I met the coolest girl that I could have met last weekend. She was just like, I was like you. I was really sensitive to Holy Spirit. I couldn't talk about it without crying. And she said, sometimes you're going to have doubts, and just know that that is the enemy. And the more that you can strengthen and keep walking, keep showing up and asking and believing, just the way that life is going to change for you. And just want you to have the best life too. And so if that might look like you stepping into your God era, I'm so happy to talk to you, talk about this, because it just has been the coolest thing for me in the last little bit. That's all I got for you today, Bestie. Make sure you come back, because we're going to be back for episode 3 in technically episode 2 in our God Era series. I will see you next week. I love you so much.